Now, the International Air Transport Association's AGM and World Air Transport Summit have wrapped up in Dubai, post looking at ways to solve certain challenges in the continent's aviation sector. It has emerged that post the turbulence brought on by the pandemic, African passenger traffic is approaching a full recovery, so much that air passenger traffic is projected to more than double to 345 million in 2043. Linden Birns, who's MD of Plain Talking, talks to us on this recovery. Linden, an absolute pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone.
All right, Linden, it has actually been quite a long journey to recovery. It felt like COVID broke things very quickly, and it's taken us a long time to even recoup all those losses and thrive again.
It has indeed, and it's been an uneven recovery. North Africa, West Africa, and East Africa have now all reached par with 2019, in some instances surpassed those traffic levels. Southern Africa, we're still behind. We're still around about 81% of 2019 traffic levels for various reasons. Our market shrank. We've got one key player that's not actually operating a lot of the routes that it used to operate, long haul, bringing people into and out of Africa or into and out of Southern Africa, and as a result we're not getting that feed anymore. So and I'm talking about South African Airways there. It's sitting on a lot of licenses and a lot of route licenses that are unutilized, and there's nobody else who's able to actually take those up. So that's holding us back. And then, of course, profitability and profit margins. We've all seen the impact of inflation in the past couple of years, and the impact also of the stronger currencies like the dollar, the euro, and the rand. And this is an industry that is priced in dollars. So a lot of your costs are incurred in dollars, but you're generating your revenues. If you're a sub-Saharan African airline, you're generating the bulk of your revenues in softer local currencies. And so, as they soften, so you've got to pedal that much faster to generate the additional revenues to cover your costs. And we're seeing that if you compare the profit margins globally for the industry, you're looking at about 3.1% net profit margin at the moment. That's not enough. That's below the cost of the cost of finance, and it's probably below net GDP growth and inflation. In Africa, we're seeing a net profit margin of 0.6%. That's about 90 US cents, or about 18 rand on each passenger carried, and that's just not enough, frankly. And as a result, the International Air Transport Association are saying they're forecasting that African carriers combined this year will post a net profit of about 100 million US dollars.
And I want to speak about this issue of margins, because, these margins are astonishing. I'm certain that, the margins could be strong on a loaf of bread in some places around the world here. And because, of course, we speak of this dynamic of costs incurred in dollars and revenue made in softer local currencies here. Is that just the only way the industry could work? Could we not hedge ourselves against the dollar here? I'm wondering, because, of course, the sustainability of African airlines is important for us to not only reach those pre-COVID levels for Southern Africa, but also just for us to thrive and for travel to be more accessible in and around the continent.
I think one's got to zoom out a little bit and look at what are the drivers and what are governments doing about addressing them. The key drivers really are population growth and urbanization, both of which are on the rise in Africa. We're going to add over 1 billion people to the populace by the end of the century. And we've got rising urbanization. Even in a country, like Namibia, where we've seen urbanization go from about 25% to 53% over the last 25 years. So governments have got to find ways of not just feeding, housing, educating, and looking after all these people. They also need to try and create ways of providing sustainable economic opportunities. And the key way to do that is to open markets for trade. Now, it's all very good. We have initiatives like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but we don't actually have any form of legislative authority underpinning that. Like it's, you know, if we compare the African Union, say, with the European Union, um, and so initiatives like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the Southern African or the Single African Air Transport Market, and the Free Movement of Persons Protocol, which all hinge together and are meant to create one big working bloc in Africa. Well, there's no legal construct for those to make them happen. It's all pretty much a kind of voluntary association, and that's also holding things back. And then we've got other factors like, you know, especially in our part of the world, here in Southern Africa, we're no longer producing jet fuel. Um, our refineries pretty much all shut down. I think the Astron refinery here in Cape Town restarted recently, but it's not yet at full output. So over 90% of our jet fuel at the moment has to be imported. Now, that means we're end up paying about a 30% premium above the rest of the world, by the time you've looked at getting the fuel into the fuel tank of the aircraft, because of your shipping, your logistics, your storage, your pipeline, SA receiver of revenue wanting to, or SA revenue services at least wanting to, impose extra duties and stuff on jet fuel that's transported over the multi-product pipeline from Durban Harbour to NatRef in Johannesburg, for example. So these are just layer upon layer of additional costs. And I think it's time also that governments stop looking at airlines and air transport as a tax cow, and instead had a mindset shift and said, actually, air connectivity and air transport are key and fundamental to our economic growth. If we have good connectivity, we get stronger economies. We get stronger economies, we get stronger industries.
Well, and that's all we have time for today, but I think you've shed some light on very important, matters here pertaining to aviation. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That was Linden Birns, MD of Plain Talking.